Now, like some of those kids have come back, and I'll tell you what, those kids still remember that senior page because they'll come back in for other things and they're like, wait, you're the one that did the class of 2020 page. And I'm, well, yeah, but wasn't a big deal. We made a Facebook page and but all the kids in the group got adopted. Lots of them got adopted by 2 and 3 people. And then what the fun part was afterwards, parents would post photos from, way little kids all the way up onto their senior pictures. So they posted all these great photos of the other parents in town. Oh my God, I forgot little Johnny. And that's what he looked like back in the day, right? But then everybody started posting the pictures on the flip side as the kids were getting their gifts or whatever was happening. They were taking pictures. And so you had all everybody in the community that they didn't necessarily have seniors, but they wanted to do something. So it felt like, again, it reminded me of what I loved about Dripping when I moved here, that these people don't even have kids that are in the senior class, maybe don't even have kids, right? But they found somebody that, I liked this one because he was going, she's going into fashion and I'm a fashion gal, or this one was a musician and I wanted to adopt a musician. And so it was really cool to see all those connections get made and then see the posts that continued throughout, really throughout the summer, because they kind of kept going with it.
Welcome to the Sold on Drip podcast, your ultimate destination for all things Dripping Springs. I am your host, Bill Cafferetta, and we are here to celebrate what makes this town the best place to live in the Texas Hill Country. It's amazing people. Join us as we sit down with local residents and business owners to hear their stories, learn why they love this community and are proud to call it home. We will be spotlighting their businesses, find out why they choose to serve the people of Dripping Springs, and dive into the local events that bring our community together. Our finger is always on the pulse, and we will be keeping you informed about how our rapid growth and development is impacting our schools, resources, and the local real estate market. Whether you're a lifelong resident or you have just discovered Dripping Springs, you will soon know why we are all sold on drip. Thanks for joining and enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Sold on Drip podcast. I'm your host, Bill Cafferetta, and I am here with Dorothy Lawrence of the Dorothy Butler Law Firm. Welcome, and we are so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
I want to give a little intro to Dorothy for those who don't know her. She is a financial attorney with 13 years experience. She actually started the business from her kitchen table with her infant, and we all know that's almost impossible, so huge props for that. She's been named a top attorney by Austin Monthly Magazine and is an absolute powerhouse in this industry. She's a pro musician. I'll let her get into some of those details later, but has played with the likes of Andrea, Bocelli, Bernadette Peters, The Who, and that list goes on. She continues to perform with Broadway across America, and you can find her on Instagram at Your Trendy Lawyer, which I think is a genius Instagram handle. So welcome, and just so happy you're here. So just want to get a little bit of the Dorothy story. So as a longtime resident of Dripping Springs, tell us, who is Dorothy and why Dripping Springs?
Sure. So Dorothy's a South Louisiana girl. I moved here after finishing all the schooling, 9 years of college and law school and beyond law school, ended up here in Dripping Springs. Fell in love with it. I fell in love with the community. I fell in love with the people here and the small business visit here. And I just love that you get the feel of Austin, right? Austin's right down the road, but yet I always tell people that are not from here, I feel like I still kind of live in Mayberry, right? I still live in that small town. Everybody still has that great neighborly attitude. I love it. So I moved here, and because I was a South Louisiana girl, didn't go to UT. I'm sorry. I didn't go to A&M. I'm still not sorry. And I really struggled.
Hearing a Go Tigers in your voice?
There's maybe some Go Tigers in that voice. Yep, I'm going to stick to that 2019-2020 season we had. So I moved here and I opened up a law firm. I did it at the kitchen table because I was really, at the time, I didn't have a UT law degree. I didn't have any connections to Austin. So trying to find a job in this market when you're not from Austin, it is crazy. I don't know if it's still as crazy anymore, but 13 years ago, it was really crazy. So I said, fine, I'll make a law firm.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I have friends of mine who will say that, more on the Aggie side, I guess UT as well, but there's that they will only hire Aggies. They will only hire Longhorns. It's a real true connection around here with those universities.
Yeah, it was crazy. I cold called. I probably called 100 law firms. I mean, not exaggerating. I was pregnant at the time and I was calling law firms going, man, are you hiring for anything? I will come do anything in your law firm to get a foot in the door. And I remembered finding a firm downtown Austin. It was like a small 4 or 5 person. All they did was tax law. And I went, this is great. I have my master's in tax law. I'm licensed in 2 states to do this. Like, come let me do it. And they were hiring for a law clerk, which is typically what somebody does when they're in law school. Before they finish, they go in and they clerk at an office. I said, I'll do that. That sounds great. And they looked at my resume. They didn't look at the resume. They told me over the phone. She said, well, you didn't go to UT? And I said, no, I graduated from LSU. And then I got this master's in it, which none of your attorneys in the office even have this LL.M. I didn't say that, but I was thinking it. And and she said, well, you never audited a class or anything at UT because they're not even going to talk to you.
Wow.
What do you mean? So
Wow.
I said, so at that point, I remember that phone call being really what kind of kicked it in. And I said, okay, if nobody's even going to talk to me because I didn't go to UT or one of the other schools, I'm just going to make a law firm. And I say that because that was my entire intention here was I'm going to make a law firm. I'm going to make a Facebook page and I'm going to say that I practiced for 6 months or a year. And then somebody will actually interview me at that point. And a year in, I needed to hire another attorney to come help me out because I was so busy. And I said, well,
Great.
Here we are.
That's the spirit we want to hear. That's that hustle mentality, that entrepreneurial spirit, just not letting it, you make the decisions, you're going to build your future. That's actually like the book, The Last Lecture by, was it Robert Pausch?
Yeah.
Amazing book. That book changed my life.
It's a fantastic one.
Trying to get into grad school, I kept getting denied, and then I gave up. And as I was giving up, read that book, and it blew open everything for me mentally. That's fantastic. So that was 2011.
2011, yeah.
2011. So you're at this now a little over 12, 13 years. What was the trajectory of that? When did you actually break into where you were so busy, hired that, and then you have to get an office and a whole staff and the whole bit? What did that look like?
Yeah, so the firm started in April of 2011 because I had a 10-month-old sitting on the corner watching Barney while I was doing it. And then by the summer of 2012, I needed to bring on my first associate attorney. Third attorney came on about December that year, and we went, I think we need to hire somebody that can be like a secretary or something. And at the time I had no office. So I remember everybody had a key to my house. We had a 3rd bedroom in the home, because I was still living the single mom life, and we had a 3-bedroom that the 3rd bedroom was the office. So the 2 other attorneys and our secretary all had keys to my home, and they had the key to the alarm code. And they would just come and go as they needed to go to the office. And we kind of tried to make it that everybody would meet once a week at least. We'd all sit at the table and had a big table in that office room. And I think finally about January of 2014, I went, maybe it's time to actually look at a physical office space as opposed to people coming to my house and working in the bedroom, right? So we opened up the first office in Dripping Springs in January of 2014.
It's fantastic. I can only imagine what that was like, the boiler room in the 3rd bedroom of your home and people coming and going. And I bet that was cool for your kid though, to have that many people in and out and like just extra bodies around, and that socialization must have been.
That was fun. And the stories that he heard and then repeated at the Pathways preschool were also fantastic. I will never forget. He was a 3-year-old and they were doing one of the, their little 10-minute church time, reading the story and going over things. And I'll never forget walking in and the director at the time looking at me, and I came in and she's like, is everything okay at home? And I went, well, I think so. I don't know. I just came from home. I thought it was fine. And she goes, well, we were doing the prodigal son story today and talking about, what happens when we were talking to the kids about what happens when you run out of money. And all the other kids, 3-year-old children went, well, you can't buy any more toys. You can't buy any more candy. Dan, and your son, he looked up and went, actually, when you run out of money, the bank comes and takes your car and your house from you. And I went, oh, okay. The repo man didn't come to my house last night. I'm a bankruptcy attorney, and that's why.
They went to someone else's house.
Oh, and she was so relieved. But I mean, man, I will just never forget the look on her face. Is everything okay at home? Do we need to help out? And I went, I don't think so. I think I'm good.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting piece too. Like kids, just we can sidestep the business for a second. It's unbelievable the things they pick up on, the cues they pick up on, the stories and the way they twist them, and they'll be better for it in the end. Just this life experience at a young age, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, my 3-year-old knowing about the repo man was
My 5-year-old roasts me. She does a lot of my listing stuff. She does a lot of the videos, and she has her own little desk right here on the corner and works with dad and all that. So we had a listing in the front of the house, front of the neighborhood earlier this year, and it was actually under contract, but there was an issue with a leak, and it took like a month to get all the repairs done. So we were driving by it, and one day she looks at me and she goes, Daddy, that daddy sign is still in the yard, and I don't think we're selling that house too good. So maybe you should call some people. It's like, thanks, Zoe. Like, thanks for roasting me on the sign being in the yard too long. That's
amazing when you get roasted by a 5-year-old.
kind of the best, though.
I mean, it is. You got to be proud of them at the same time. Like, you just roasted me, but I'm so proud of you for doing that. That was a good one.
I know. Oh man, children, we love them.
Yes.
Yeah. So clearly, the law firm took off. I mean, being named top attorney by Austin Monthly was an amazing feat, and financial attorney. I am going to assume that our listeners are as uninformed as I am. I'm assuming that has to do with taxes, bankruptcies, like you said. What else is that? And who is the avatar of the person that you help that could actually reach out to you?
Yeah. So I will do anything on the spectrum that is financial in that area. So yes, bankruptcies is a big piece of it. It's kind of how I started everything, was by doing bankruptcy work, because I came out, and that was during one of the last market crashes. Was time you needed bankruptcy attorneys at that point. So we do that. I also work with individuals that just say, you know what, I don't need to file for bankruptcy, but I have this one credit card, I can't get them off my back. Can you just help me? Can you help me deal with this one guy over here? So that's the side of it over there that maybe we need a little bit more financial help. We also do tax prep. We did over 500 tax returns in the last 2 years. I was actually named top tax preparer in Dripping Springs a couple years in a row.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and that is anybody from just an individual that wants somebody that's got that tax background to do their tax return, all the way on up to business owners. So we have anything and everything in between. It's always me that does them. It's not, I don't have anybody else that I pawn off tax returns to and say, this is too easy for me. You don't need me on this. We deal with, just like I said, individuals that don't want to put their own name on it, or they want somebody else's name signed down on that tax return as the preparer, on up to big businesses.
So you probably have a busy October coming up with all the business that just jump on extension. Yeah.
Somebody may have taken too many vacations and gone to too many concerts this summer, so I'm a little bit behind on where I should be, but we got till October 16th. It's fine.
But
and then I celebrate the next day with my birthday.
And you had a good summer. When was that? Your birthday?
My birthday is always the day after the tax extensions are due. So I'll give you the deadline, celebrate a birthday.
So that's when you need to, we were talking before we started recording, but that's when you got to get your Red Ash reservation for that day after.
There we go. That's what I'll do.
You need to call them now, though, because it's tough to get on their list.
I can't make that call, though. That's the husband's job. He has to make that call.
True. Well, let's kind of go back to that a little bit, because we'll jump back and forth. You talked about going to see a bunch of concerts this summer. Tell us about that and a little bit about your music career. I mean, you're a very talented musician and have really, I mean, Andrea Bocelli, The Who, this is pretty impressive. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So prior to deciding I wanted to go to law school, I was a music major back at LSU. And I dropped my degree. This is where you'll decide my age. I dropped my degree on 9/11. I decided music wasn't going to be enough. I needed to do something. And so, you know, the very idealistic college child, I'm going to be a lawyer by day and a musician by night. That was the goal. And so, you know, I continued doing music the whole time through, much to the chagrin probably of some of my law school professors, because it didn't exactly make me the prime student while in school. Playing symphony gigs the night before finals may have not been the best approach, but we did it anyway. So I kept it going the whole time. And then I moved to Austin, and I was able to connect with the guy here. Pretty much there's a handful of them, but there's one main guy here that really, anytime there's a Broadway show in town, or, you know, like when the Who comes to town and says, we need a symphony orchestra, we want a symphony to back us, they go to this one guy, and I was able to connect with him. And so I've been doing that here in Austin since 2011, really since right at around the time I started the law firm. So, you know, anytime you go to a show at Bass Concert Hall, those big Broadway Across America productions, people don't realize this. Depending on the show, half the time that orchestra is Austin musicians. It is not a traveling orchestra. It's guys that are your local guys right here that are coming in a day before, learning the book, and we play the show the next day.
I would have never guessed that, honestly. But it makes so much more sense. I mean, I can't imagine the expense for them to travel with a full orchestra.
Yeah, so usually those guys, they most of the shows that we do, they'll tour with maybe a keyboard player, maybe even 2 keyboard players. And then depending on what the show is, they may travel with like their percussionist, because maybe that's like a really heavy kind of rock book, or they maybe travel with a guitar player. So it depends on the show. But then, the rest of your full orchestra is usually, if it's a full orchestra show, they're usually here local from Austin. When you go to the kind of rock shows, those where it's a 4 or 5 piece, they're probably touring with the guys with the show. But the rest of them, we're here local, and it's not this is the other piece of this that blows people's minds. They think, oh, you guys must just like practice all year for getting ready for these different shows. They call us and ask us to play the show. We will rehearse the night before for about 3 hours. Sometimes we don't even do a night before rehearsal. We just show up the day the show opens. We rehearse for 3 hours. And the first time we've ever played the show all the way through is the night when we open.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, props on that. That's the definition of always being on call.
Yes, it's wild. And some, like I said, when I got that call to play last year, it was the last year. It was a 6-week window, and I played with the Who on the front end, and then Andrea Bocelli on the back end of it. Couldn't get more opposite. Crazy experience, because it was right after that new Moody Center opened, right? And I think the Moody Center had been open about 3-4 weeks when I played with the Who. And, as you've mentioned, I'm an avid concert goer. I've been on the front row of all these venues, but to actually sit on the position with the band and be on the stage and looking out, that's a whole new experience. To see what those guys see every night, to think like, man, these guys have been seeing that every night for 40 and 50 years, just people losing their minds. And you're like, I'm in this tonight, though. This is cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So who are you seeing this summer with all those vacations you were taking?
Oh my goodness. We went to quite a few concerts. It's possible I followed Foreigner around the state of Texas right before school went back. That's my number one, my number one group right there. I also got, who else did I see? We saw Shania Twain. I went to Dallas for a couple shows. I'm like blanking out right now, because that's how it's going to go. I know I'm going to like 10 concerts, I think, in September. Yeah, and they're all over the place. But yeah, Foreigner was the biggie for the summer. It was the build up to go and see the 3 shows here in Texas.
Yeah, I think the only show I've seen this year, I'm a huge Springsteen guy. I've seen him 23 or 24 times. So I saw him at Moody, and I was blown away by the facility. It's the sound there is just amazing.
It's a fantastic facility, and I have become friends with a bunch of the guys that work for Foreigner and a bunch of the crew members. And so when we were at the show at the Moody here right before school started, my son and I were actually off on the wing when Loverboy was playing. So we were like hanging with the crew and watching from the side. And I was like, we knew it was a better experience because we were indoors, and in Dallas and Houston, they were both outdoors. So of course, that alone made it Austin better. But I was like, how is it in here? I was just curious, because to me, we look at it and we're like, this is an amazing venue. But I wanted to know from that professional side what they thought. And they're like, y'all really this is a special venue here. So it's really cool to think that these kind of guys come in and they look at our venue as being one of the special ones.
So what was better about the Austin show, the sound and the quality, or not sweating your face off outside?
I mean, that was the number one thing, right? I think the show in Houston the night before, it had been like 109 degrees when we got out there. Dallas was like 107. So yeah, to get an air conditioner, like, man, it's cold in here. I don't know what to do tonight.
So you are committed.
I was very, very committed to going to those shows. I've already bought my tickets for their final farewell show in Vegas, which is not until 2024. So
nice.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I got to figure out if I can make it all work. And again, I hope it's not a farewell show, but being a huge Springsteen guy, the San Francisco show in December, trying to nail that one down. It's the last show of this tour. So
I mean, like I always say, the concert tickets are always worth it.
I agree. Absolutely. I mean, when you're committed to a band, you got to go no matter where it is, and it makes it worth it. But that's the thing is, I look at it, my wife makes fun of me because I have like so many like really close friends of mine are like older, like in their 70s. I just have found that. She's like, why are you always like older friends? And these old, like Bruce Springsteen's 100 years old. I'm like, he's not 100, but
my husband says the same thing. He teases me about Foreigner. He's like, man, you're just like chasing these 65-year-old men all around the country. I'm like, yeah, I am.
When you know what you like, go for it.
I mean, like, you get it, right? There's nothing on the radio now that sounds like Foreigner and Springsteen and those guys.
It's not. No, it's
nothing.
not. I've grown very accustomed to country music since I moved here like 13 years ago now, which I never in a million years would have thought. I mean, I grew up, I was a 90s hip hop kid, Tupac, Biggie, Dre, all that. Even that, like, I can't even fathom this mumble rap today. I mean, in coaching lacrosse, I mean, I'm with high school kids all the time and they put stuff on the speaker and I'm just like, I can't even, I don't get it. I don't get it. But it's the same thing that our parents did with us, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Now my poor 13-year-old, he goes to school and he's sporting, his Motley Crue and his Journey and Foreigner shirts, and everybody's like, "Who are these bands you're listening to, kid?"
Well, that's cool now with all the kids that are thrifting and wearing all the old concert shirts. I mean,
That's true, but he can actually name more than 3 songs by the bands that he's wearing on his t-shirts. So
right,
and he probably saw them in concert.
Yeah. I had a question I wanted to get back to. We totally sidetracked on the music, which was super cool. So you're talking about financial, and here's something I come across quite a bit, and it's been a lot of discussion this year, and frankly, some unhappiness with all the property taxes and the increases there. Is that something that y'all help with as well, with maybe protesting some of that, past the initial protest? Because I know we're past that, but there's some people I know that have done that, not gotten anywhere near a true value, and they're kind of struggling and looking for help with the county.
Yeah, so we absolutely do property tax disputes every year. It's usually not me. That's usually one of the other associates in the firm that will do those property tax disputes, mainly because it comes right off the tail end of finishing April 15th deadline. And I'm like, nope, I'm tapping out. But we do, it's hard. It's been hard in Hays County, particularly. I mean, everywhere in Texas, it's been hard the last couple of years to fight those property taxes, because everybody's have just ramped up so much. But we do handle those disputes. We're still got quite a few hearings to go here in September on them. So
now, what about we're past that deadline, so people have either disputed it themselves or used the service or whatnot, and they've gotten their response, and we're in that appeal process now. Do you help with the appeal process if you didn't do the initial dispute 2-3 months ago?
Yeah, we will do those. Usually it's more, it's not as common that people will come to us afterwards for the appeal. We certainly do them. It's easier if we've kind of done it from the get-go and made sure, because with those property taxes, it's really funny. You miss checking one box and they're like, oh, nope, everything else is done. You've waived all of that. So as long as we can verify everything else was done exactly right, then we can go ahead and take on.
It's been tough in town. I mean, I kind of reached out a bunch about it. I want to say I had probably 80 to 90 people that I helped with some general advice comps, helping them with it. Some had good success, some didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy though. There's 3 specific instances where we were able to give them enough advice of how to approach it, where they honestly thought they were going to have to sell the home because they couldn't afford the new tax. I mean, their payment went up $1,200-$1,500 a month.
Yeah.
So it's great that you're a resource for that. And let's talk more on that as we get into next year to make sure that we have as much ability. Hopefully we don't see another massive spike like we did this year.
Hopefully not. But
if we do, we know who we can look at to help us with that.
Absolutely.
Another thing that we kind of talked about, and actually when we first reached out about recording this podcast, you were at Disney. So tell us about that mouse ear addiction you have.
Yeah, there's maybe a mouse ear addiction. I don't know which is worse at this point, the concerts or the Mickey Mouse. I don't really know, but yeah, I love, I always enjoyed going when I was a kiddo, right? Everybody does when they're, well, I think everybody does when they're a kid, right? But it's a whole new level when you get to bring your kids and watch it through their eyes, right? Like getting to watch it, my 5-year-old, when he sees Mickey Mouse, that is Mickey Mouse, right? There's no concept that Mickey Mouse is in 12 places around this property at the same time. That's Mickey Mouse when he's seeing it. So that, I don't know, that just, it's a happiness like none other for me to get to see that through his eyes. And so, anybody that has stepped foot into this office over here has seen that there are wall-to-wall Disney murals in the offices.
Wow.
So that I can walk in every day and have a little bit of Disney. It's fun. And I do it, yes, because I enjoy it and it makes me smile when I come in. But honestly, I've set this place up so that the decor isn't, the decor is a fun place. You walk in, there's LSU stuff all over the main lobby. So everybody can talk about some sports, or there's, that time I went to New Orleans, right? Or you see the giant Disney mural, and God, I love taking my kids to Disney. Or there's also, as we so fondly refer to it, as the Foreigner Museum that's right at the front office also, that's got my platinum album from the guys and the guitar and all that. So like there's something that they immediately latch onto that has nothing to do with why they're coming in here. Because let's be honest, nobody wants to come see me. I'd like to think that they do, but no one wants to walk into a law firm.
I do now. I'm coming for a tour.
And my tax clients, I always feel like it's a reprieve. I'm like, I got about 6 weeks where people aren't really angry coming to see me, right? They're coming in, it's like, oh, we gotta go through the routine, right? So the rest of the year, no one's like excited they're going to talk to a lawyer. So there's something for them to latch onto that's a little bit more familiar and a little bit more fun and inviting. And then, okay, well, I guess now we can go talk about the not fun stuff.
Well, the one thing you hit on there that I agree with 100%, and I'm going to double down on, is that New Orleans is the greatest city in America. It is the best. You can't see this if you're listening, but if you're watching the YouTube, you can see the fleur-de-lis tattoo on my arm. I love that city.
I was saying, you see mine over here. That's my logo. Is
on the logo. I've been there 20-something times, going back in October. Just the food and the people and the environment, it's the best.
You just gotta fast for like a week before you go, and then a week after, because you're going to gain 10 pounds. You could be there 2 days and you're putting on 10 pounds in New Orleans.
Fine. No, it's fine. It's I love it. And you would know more about this than me, but the one saying that I learned there from locals that I love is pass a good time. Yeah. And it's just everything. Like, everybody there is happy. And my wife brought this up too. We were kind of sitting outside in the patio because we went in the fall when it was really nice. And now it's like really, built up downtown and bigger buildings. But we were thinking 30, 40 years ago, when it was just the 3-story buildings with all the porches and the ferns and everything, like what that city must have been like with just the breeze coming through and all the laughter and everyone just like, what a place. It's one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah, I haven't been home. It's been a while since I've gotten to go home. And home for me is Baton Rouge, which is, an hour up the road from New Orleans. So yeah, we grew up, okay, it's Saturday, let's go to New Orleans. That was just and every few weekends you'd go down there because you just wanted to eat a good dinner that night.
Yep. Yeah, it's the best, man. It's one of the best places. Really enjoy it.
I think I've gained a pound though, actually sitting here just thinking about the food in New Orleans. I think that's how it works. Just thinking about it, I've put on weight.
I started sweating thinking about it. So either way, we're in good shape. We were actually going to go there. We had a trip planned that I was really excited about, and it was March, 13th, 14th, 2020. Right as everything was shutting down. We had, I don't know, I'll send you a link to see it. It was this amazing Airbnb. They had turned this huge synagogue into an Airbnb, and it was the coolest place. Oh, it was so cool. It was right on the parade route for St. Patrick's Day. And my wife were going for a little 4-day weekend to spend St. Patrick's Day in New Orleans. And then we had to cancel it 2 days before because everything shut down. And it was a trip that I keep looking back at. And with the kids now and everything, that's one we won't be able to recreate. But I was excited about that one. And that kind of brings me to a good segue. The pandemic was a tough time for all of us with the shutdown. And we started talking a little bit about that class of 2020 and what they kind of went through as seniors here in high school in town. And you did a really, really cool thing with all of the parents in town with a Facebook page. And I'll kind of let you talk on what you did and how that kind of played out for that group of seniors.
Yeah. So I started a page that was the class of 2020 Adopt a Senior page. I think I was kicking around talking about it with, somebody at the office, we need to do something for the kids in the 2020 class. Cause it was crazy. And at the time, my secretary, she had a son that was in that class. I was like, I just want to do something. I want to make them feel like they're getting the bang for the buck. Right. And so we started the Facebook page, and I remember just starting it with I'm just going to invite everybody I know in Dripping Springs, or however many, a couple hundred people that was on Facebook that I was able to plug into this group, and just say, add everybody that has a senior graduating. And the purpose was that they would, the parent or whoever was involved would make a little post about their senior, tell us a little bit about them and where what was next for them, and then somebody else in the community would come in and adopt them. And adoption would mean whatever you wanted it to mean, right? Give them a gift, do a card for them, whatever it meant. And so I remember starting it and thinking man, I hope this gets some traction. There's gonna be 10 kids in here. And at the time, I have a gal in town. She runs Daisy Print Company, little local business plug there. And I reached
Oh,
out to her and I said,
Emily Ornelas.
yes, she's fantastic.
Yeah,
Any
she's
printing
great.
needs, any monogramming, whatever you need, she'll take care of you.
Yeah,
But
Daisy,
she,
they're good. Yeah.
she's fantastic. But I reached out to her and I said, look, can you just design me like a little classic 2020 card? I said, you can put a tiger on even, because then if I don't use them all, I'll send them to somebody at LSU, right? And I said, just do me like 20, 25 of these cards, because I figured if it didn't take off, any parents that put their kid in this group, and I should stop saying parents because there were other family members and friends, but whatever, that put the children in on the group, that I was going to send them a card. I said, if nothing else, these, however many kids get in this group, I'm going to do a handwritten card for those kids and send them something so somebody knows that they were, at least here's a congrats card. And yeah, I think it ended up that there were about 300 something that ended up in the group. I don't remember how big the class actually was, but by the time it was all said and done, there were, close to 300, if not over that were in the group. And Emily had to keep printing out those cards. And I hand wrote and addressed notes to all of those 300 kids that were in the group, because once I started, I couldn't stop.
And that's no joke. That's a lot of work.
I joked because they invited me to come speak at 12 Fox. They did an event for the seniors, at the venue. And they asked me to come and speak at it to the seniors. And I remember saying, like, you will get a card from me. It just may be in like August. And I made sure it was done before like they would have left to go to college or wherever they were going.
That's when they did that big barbecue fundraiser, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
I remember going, I just went and picked up a bunch of food to bring home. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was I remember telling them, joking, like, I'll get them done. Just it's not gonna be before you're done with school for the year. And but I finished the stack, and I remember being a big deal to me because I wanted to make sure I looked at looked at whatever the person had posted about them and like tied into the card. I was like, I'm not going to just write congrats on graduating. It was a big effort. My hand still hurts from that.
You got to get to know each kid.
I really did. It was cool because I've now, like, some of those kids have come back, and I'll tell you what, those kids still remember that senior page, because they'll come back in for other things and they're like, wait, you're the one that did the class of 2020 page. And I'm, well, yeah, but wasn't a big deal. We made a Facebook page and but all the kids in the group got adopted. Lots of them got adopted by 2 and 3 people. And then what the fun part was afterwards, I didn't have a kid in that class. My oldest at the time, I think, was in the 4th grade or 5th grade, whatever he was in. But the parents would post photos from, way little kids all the way up onto their senior pictures. So they posted all these great photos of the other parents in town. Oh my God, I forgot little Johnny. And that's what he looked like back in the day, right? But then everybody started posting the pictures on the flip side as the kids were getting their gifts or whatever was happening. They were taking pictures. And so you had everybody in the community that they didn't necessarily have seniors, but they wanted to do something. So it felt like, again, it reminded me of what I loved about Dripping when I moved here, that these people don't even have kids that are in the senior class, maybe don't even have kids, right? But they found somebody that, I liked this one because he was going, she's going into fashion and I'm a fashion gal, or this one was a musician and I wanted to adopt a musician. And so it was really cool to see all those connections get made and then see the posts that continued throughout, really throughout the summer, because they kind of kept going with it.
I kind of watched along from home and remember that happening. And that 2020 class, if anyone that knows me knows, it's a special place like in my heart, because as being the lacrosse coach here in town, we had a huge 2020 class. I mean, for us on the lacrosse team, it's not as big as the football team, but we had probably 18 2020s in that class, and we were loaded that year. And I will go to my grave saying we were going to the Final Four. And to have to, I will never forget it. And I'll actually link it in the show notes here. Having to talk to those guys the night of our last game together, having coached them for 6 years, 7 years, and knowing it was the last time we were going to step on a field, and then going out and playing and having to just say goodbye with that cut off right there in the middle. It was tough. And that those weren't my kids. They were my kids, but they weren't my kids. So I can't imagine what it was like as a parent to see your kid and it's just like, it's done.
Yeah.
And it's on to the next. So that you were a huge bright spot in our community for that. And there's so many families who have so much gratitude for you for that and what that meant to them. And on behalf of all of them and that whole class and the whole community, I just say thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was really cool the next year. I knew it meant a lot to people. I didn't really realize how much it meant to people until about the next February, when somebody that had a senior reached out to me and said, because 2021's class was still kind of messed up, right? We weren't really back on.
Yeah.
And somebody reached out to me and said, hey, Dorothy, are you going to do a Facebook page for Adopt a Senior 2021? And I said, well, I will. Let's do it. Let's do another one. And then they reached out again the next year and said, are you going to, and it's dwindled down, right? It's not been as big of a thing anymore, but it was cool to see that even the following year, people reached back out to me and said, well, will you start this Facebook page back up again? So yeah, let's do it. Let's do it again.
Well, and what's cool about that is how we're going to actually transition that page to keep it as a community hub. And so much love and work went into that. And we didn't want to lose that. And with the Sold on Drip podcast, the whole idea of it is to highlight Dripping Springs residents, local businesses, and to bring the community together. And that's how we're going to kind of transition that page. And we're going to turn it into the Sold on Drip community and make it so that, we can post our episodes in there and make it another community page with events and things going on and charities we can help and things people need and just a general positive community. I know some of our pages here get a little hostile, and that's definitely not going to be the goal of that one. But so we're going to begin that transition soon here. You're going to help me with that, and we're going to have that audience and give them something. And I really do like the idea of having that kind of carry over year over year with the graduating class of each year's seniors. And I didn't even really think of that until now. I think we keep that going each spring.
I think we should. I mean, like I said, it was even with somebody that didn't have that old, a senior in high school or even a high school child, just getting to watch it was fun, right? Like, where else do you have a page where like everybody just posts and let's celebrate the kids in our class, right? Let's celebrate their accomplishments and celebrate everything that they've done. And, and then, like I said, everybody else came in and said, oh, I want to do something cool for your kid. Like, let's do this. And it was really fun. It was very special to watch it from my side of it and kind of try to help people coordinate. And of course, in 2020, you had a lot of people that they weren't going to go out and do anything, right? They were worried about going shopping or having it. So my office kind of became a hub for people. Can we drop off gifts at your office and you coordinate with the seniors? And so being in the middle of it all was really special.
Well, we're going to build on that and keep that going each year. And hopefully we can get some good involvement in that. I'd love to be a part of that. I think it's really cool. It was a really cool thing.
But you might have to do the handwritten cards this time.
There's a lot of AI programs now that have robot.
Man, no pain, no gain. If you don't have,
I know.
Cards.
I'm a big handwritten. Listen, I got a buddy of mine in Beverly Hills. Again, friends with all these like old guys. He's 87 years old. He played for John Wooden. Amazing guy. And Roger Milstein used to be the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Beverly Hills. Fantastic guy, big real estate guy, just always has a deal going on, right? When he found out about the quads, he sent me a book, John Wooden's children's book. So I wrote him a handwritten note. Thank you, sent it back to him. He called me and almost fell over. He's like, nobody in your generation writes notes anymore. This is going on my wall. And it's like on his wall next to all of his like John Wooden UCLA memorabilia.
Wow.
I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's true though. Nobody has a handwritten card. That was why in my mind I was like, I'm doing this. We're doing handwritten cards because they don't. They mean a lot.
It's cool. I like it. I had a stack over here somewhere because I was just writing some gratitude notes yesterday. I don't know where I put them, but one of my kids.
I actually have a stack. It's in this drawer that's right behind me. It's the stack of cards that I got from the 2020 seniors because a lot of them send me their graduation announcements or they send me their. So they're still in there. I've kept all of those.
Well, along with this, we're in the planning process. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we're going to have an event coming up here in a couple of weeks that we'll give you details on as soon as we figure it out. But we're going to also be looking to raise some money for the Austin Jazz Society. And when the details come, you'll know, but tell us about that and why the Austin Jazz Society is very important to you and why we can help them raise some money.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've talked about, obviously music is very near and dear to my heart. And being a Louisiana gal, gotta love my jazz. And it's interesting because I would have never guessed it moving here, but Austin actually has a really fantastic jazz musician scene, right? And I would have never guessed that coming from Louisiana, but they do. And so the Austin Jazz Society, it's kind of a two-pronged thing, right? The first part of it is just really trying to promote that, right? Promote these guys and get them into venues where they can perform and be seen, right? We have awesome clubs here. You got the Elephant Room and the Continental Club and Monk's Jazz Club, all these places that are fantastic. People don't even know about it. People don't even know what's going on in these places. So Austin Jazz Society, kind of part one is to try to raise awareness of these different things and help these musicians get some more coffee, help the musicians get their names out. But then the other side of it is that they also have started working with young musicians, right? And so they have an Austin, I think it's the Youth Jazz Orchestra. I'm hoping that my 8th grader is going to try to do that here soon. But they raise scholarships for kids that may not be able to afford to do something like that on their own. And so to keep that love of music and jazz going in that younger generation. So it's a really cool group. I have a personal connection to it because many of my musician friends that I do perform with, they are also members of the Austin Jazz Society, and they are musicians that are performing in those jazz groups. So,
well, it sounds like maybe we have to find a way to get some jazz musicians out to Dripping Springs and raise some money for this organization.
I might have some connections.
If we can make that happen, I'm really excited about that. I love events. I love people. That's why this podcast is so much fun for me. We got to know you really well today. I really appreciate your openness, the things that you've done, and we want to make sure that our listeners support your business. So if anybody here is in any sort of financial issues or needs advice, definitely reach out to Dorothy. Again, you can find her at Your Trendy Lawyer on Instagram. And this was a great opportunity to get to know you and your business a little bit better.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thrilled that you were here, and we want to make sure that you guys keep in tune for what we're going to have for this fundraiser. We want to make sure we raise good money for the Austin Jazz Society. And as soon as we get that info, we'll be the first to know. And we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sold on Drip podcast. Thank you for listening to the Sold on Drip podcast. Please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. If you would like to connect, learn more about Dripping Springs, or have any questions regarding Central Texas real estate, you can find me at soldondrip.com or on Instagram at Bill Cafferetta. I hope to see you around town.